I've got Mr. Obama sitting here, and I just was going to ask him a couple questions, but I remember 3.5 years ago when Mr. Obama won the election, and though I wasn't a big supporter, I was watching that night when he was having that thing, and they were talking about hope and change, and they were talking about yes, we can, and it was dark, and it was outdoors, and it was nice, and people were lighting candles, and they were saying, and I just thought, this is great. I mean, everybody's crying. Oprah was crying, and I was even crying. And then finally, I haven't cried that hard since I found out that there's 23 million unemployed people in this country. And now that is something to cry for, because that is a disgrace, a national disgrace, and we haven't done enough, obviously. This administration hasn't done enough to cure that. And whatever interest they have is not strong enough. And I think possibly now it may be time for somebody else to come along and solve the problem.
This was one of the most talked about political speeches of the last decade, and it's easy to see why. When Hollywood legend Clint Eastwood walked onto that convention stage, most people expected a celebrity endorsement. What they got instead was a direct challenge to President Obama, Washington politics, and the promises many Americans felt had gone unfulfilled. And one moment in particular had the crowd on its feet.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Save a little for Mitt. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, what's a movie tradesman doing out here? You know, they're all left-wingers out there, left of Lenin. At least that's what people think, but that's not really the case. There's a lot of conservative people, a lot of moderate people, Republicans, Democrats in Hollywood. It's just that conservative people, by the nature of the word itself, play a little more close to the vest, and they don't go around hot dogging it. So, but they're there. Believe me, they're there. And I just, I think that, in fact, some of them around town. I saw John Voight. There's a lot of people around here in town. John's here, Academy Award winner, terrific guy. And these people are all like-minded, like all of us. So I've got Mr. Obama sitting here. And I just was going to ask him a couple questions, but I remember 3.5 years ago when Mr. Obama won the election, and though I wasn't a big supporter, I was watching that night when he was having that thing, and they were talking about hope and change, and they were talking about yes, we can, and it was dark, and it was outdoors, and it was nice, and people were lighting candles, and they were saying. And I just thought, this is great. I mean, everybody's crying. Oprah was crying, and I was even crying. And then finally, I haven't cried that hard since I found out that there's 23 million unemployed people in this country. And now that is something to cry for, because that is a disgrace, a national disgrace, and we haven't done enough, obviously. This administration hasn't done enough to cure that. and whatever interest they have is not strong enough. And I think possibly now it may be time for somebody else to come along and solve the problem. So, Mr. President, how do you handle promises that you made when you were running for election, and how do you handle it? I mean, what do you say to people? Do you just I know people were wondering. You don't have it. Okay. Well, I know even some of the people in your own party were very disappointed when you didn't close Gitmo. And I thought, I think closing Gitmo, why close that? We've spent so much money on it. But I thought maybe it's an excuse. What do you mean, shut up? Okay. I thought it was just because somebody had a stupid idea of trying terrorists in downtown New York City. Maybe that was it. I've got to hand it to you. I've got to give credit where credit's due. You did overrule that finally, and that's so. Now we're moving onward. And I know I know you were against the war in Iraq, and that's okay. But you thought the war in Afghanistan was okay. You thought that was something that was worth doing. We didn't check with the Russians to see how they did there for the 10 years, but it. We did it, and it was, it's something to be thought about, and I think that that when we get to I think you mentioned something about having a target date for bringing everybody home. And you give that target date, and I think Mr. Romney asked the only sensible question, and he says, "Why are you giving the date out now? Why don't you just bring them home tomorrow morning?" And I thought, yeah, I'm not going to shut up. It's my turn. So anyway, we're going to have. We're going to have a little chat about that. And then I just wondered all these promises, and then I wondered about what do you want me to tell Romney? I can't tell him to do that. Can't do that to himself. You're crazy. You're absolutely crazy. You're getting as bad as Biden. Of course, we all know Biden is the intellect of the Democratic Party. So it's just a kind of a grin with a body behind it. It's just kind of a thing. But I just think that there's so much to be done, and I think that Mr. Romney and Mr. Ryan are two guys that can come along. I never thought that it was a good idea for attorneys to be president anyway, because it. I think attorneys are so busy. They're always taught to argue everything and always weigh everything and weigh both sides, and they're always devil's advocating this and bifurcating this and bifurcating that. All that stuff. But I think it's maybe time. What do you think for maybe a businessman? How about that?
Clint Eastwood wasn't speaking like a politician. He wasn't reading carefully crafted talking points or delivering a polished campaign speech. He came across like someone sitting at a kitchen table saying exactly what was on his mind. Eastwood began by reminding the audience of the excitement surrounding Barack Obama's election. He talked about the famous hope and change message, the emotional speeches, and the enormous expectations that followed. But then he shifted the focus to what he believed mattered most: results. His argument was simple. While Washington celebrated speeches and promises, millions of Americans were still struggling. Eastwood pointed to unemployment and economic hardship, arguing that too many people had been left behind despite all the optimism that surrounded the administration's arrival in office. What made the speech memorable wasn't just the criticism itself. Politicians get criticized every day. It was the way Eastwood framed the issue. He challenged the idea that government promises automatically translate into real-world success. He questioned whether Americans were actually seeing the outcomes they had been promised years earlier. The crowd reaction exploded when Eastwood's mock conversation with President Obama turned sharply toward the administration's decisions and political leadership. When Eastwood joked that Obama was getting as bad as Biden, the audience erupted in cheers and laughter. He followed it with a sarcastic remark about Biden being the intellect of the Democratic Party, drawing one of the loudest reactions of the entire speech. That moment instantly became one of the most replayed and controversial sections of the event. Supporters saw it as a fearless challenge to the political establishment. Critics viewed it as unfair political theater. Either way, it dominated headlines and guaranteed that people would be talking about the speech long after it ended. But Eastwood's larger message went beyond individual politicians. He argued that elected officials work for the American people, not the other way around. He reminded the audience that voters have the power to hire and fire leaders when they believe the job isn't being done. That message connected because it tapped into something deeper than party politics. It reflected a frustration many voters feel when campaign promises collide with everyday reality. Whether you agreed with Clint Eastwood or disagreed with him completely, this speech proved one thing: authenticity still matters in politics. Years later, people continue debating what he said because it spoke directly to larger questions about leadership, accountability, and whether Washington is truly listening to ordinary Americans. And judging by that standing ovation, a lot of people felt Eastwood was saying exactly what they had been thinking. Moments like this don't always come by. Like and subscribe to this channel for more videos like this.